Very good. So first things first, in the first class we're only going to model the head, and then in the second class we're going to be modeling the body and the arms, and then in the third one we're going to be unwrapping and texturing. So first things first, I will look at the head, and I know that just by looking at it, it's a cube, or it's a rectangle. It's a cuboid, but it's a cube. So I'm going to start by dragging out a cube. In fact, before I do that, because you're starting at the beginning of the year, all the systems will probably set to default. So if I go to create and I go to polygons, naturally I think polygon primitives is set, so this interactive creation is turned off. So if I just click an object, it will create a perfect version, but it'll create a very small perfect version in the center of the world. And you can use that, you can move it up and scale it quite quickly. But I've always come to want more control over what I'm doing, so I want to control everything that I'm doing. So if I click interactive create and I click cube, if I don't hold down shift and drag, then I'm creating a perfect cube, and I can actually choose to what scale I'm making it. If I didn't hold down shift and I just dragged out, I could create a cube-like shape, which is useful in some aspects, but for this I'd say we just need to make a perfect cube. So we'll make a perfect cube, and then on the side here you got translate X, translate Y, translate Z. We're just going to change translate Z and translate Y, X to 0. Translate Y you can ignore, we don't need to change that. Then I'm going to move it up. So if I change view to my front view now, I'm going to click this button here. This is the X-ray tool. It's a little two white panels overlapping. If I click that, we're going to go into X-ray mode, so we can see through. We can still see the darkness of the polygon, but then we can see our reference image underneath. So this is a good way for us to keep track of we're keeping the right shape and stuff. So right now I'm just going to go right in and scale it down and get a rough approximation of the shape. I'm not going to use the top of the head as my top or bottom. I'm actually going to use about where the edges of the corners are here, because we're going to make this curve later on. I'll just move that to the sides like that. Cool. And then if I could scope my side view, so how I change view then is if I hold down space, I get this view, and this is kind of a quick access to all our different menus. But if I hold down left click in the center where it says Maya, I'll then get some camera options. I can need to change it, I can actually make a new camera, or I can switch to the right view, bottom view, front view, back view, top view, left view. So if I switch to the right view, that's the default for the side view. And then I can see here that my cube needs to be scaled in a little bit, and then just moved into place. Good. So now that's in place from the front and from the side, I'm probably going to look at adding the very basic curve from the top and the bottom. And there's a couple of ways we can do this. The most common way is for us to go to mesh tools and then insert edge loop, and I'm going to go click the options box, and that'll give us the tool options here. We'll be using mostly the multi-edge tool, but I'll just give you an overview what these other two do. The other two allow you to add an edge wherever you want, so you can see that I'm dragging from side to side there. Same with this one. This one will make more sense when you've got more organic shapes, because this one will, as an edge kind of gets bigger or smaller, this curve will actually compensate for that, so you get a nice equal fanned edge flow going through. Whereas relative, if you start off in one place, it'll kind of keep the same relative size as the edge flow. So when you come to the other section, it won't be inlined how you want it, if that makes sense. But we're not going to use those. We're going to use the multi-edge tool. So if I click that, this bottom underneath it gets activated. For now, I'm just going to change that to 1, and I'm going to click right near this corner here, just to make a point. I'm going to click right near this corner, and you can see that it makes a new edge in the center. So what multiple edge tool does it makes a equal division dependent on what this number is. So at the minute we've got it set to 1, so it's going to split everything in half. If we set that to 2, it's going to put everything in thirds. If we put that to 3, it's going to put everything in equal fourths. And this is really nice for just keeping track of good edge flow, equal polygons, because if we start doing things where we've got polygons really close to each other like that, and then we've got big ones, over time that'll start causing us a lot of issues. And especially when you come to animated characters, if you've got clusters of geometry together like that, it can cause an issue when you come into places like bending your wrist, bending your elbow, bending your arm. And as 3D modelers, we might not be animators, but we definitely need to understand the limitations or the things we need to do for animation. So, getting back to multi-edge tool, I'm just going to click that, and then I'm going to change that to 1, and then I'm just going to click on one of the horizontal lines to make an edge. And if I go back to the front view again, this should still be selected, and I'm just going to start scaling it out. And as you see there, we've got a very basic sort of gestural shape. I know one thing it's going to be really tempted to do is just start firing in and adding loads of edges straight away. Oop, come on, there you go. It's really tempting to just go in and add loads of edges because we have the power to do that. But it can again quickly kind of cause you issues. So if you keep it low poly at the beginning and just stay low poly for as long as you can until you kind of have complete control over the scene, it's going to cause you a lot of less stress. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at these edges, and you can see that they're not right angles, they're not sharp, they're actually beveled, or they're actually curved. So in fact I'm actually going to use the bevel tool to do this. So I'm going to select the object, so select by edge, so holding down right click, select the edge, and then just go around and select each one of these, and then I'm going to click bevel. You can see there that what we've done is we've actually done like a chamfer or a slice on the edge, and you can see that this box pops up as well. Fraction means the size of our bevel. So if we just click on, you can see, well, you might be able, I don't think Camtasia records this, but if you do that, you can see that if you hover over, the cursor turns into like a double arrow pointing in 2 different directions. If you drag from the left, you're actually closing the fraction. If you drag to the right, you're opening the fraction. And these sort of things work on a ratio of 0 to 1. So if you just scroll that through, you can actually see that that's changing. And then underneath, you've got something called segment, or segments. That just means how many times that new face is subdivided. So by default, it's set to 1, so that means there's 1 polygon there. If you set that to 2, it means there's 2 polygons there. 3 polygons. Very, really simple to understand. So I'm going to just Z that back until before I did. There we go. So I'm going to go to the front view for this, and I'm going to turn on X-ray. I'm going to hit bevel, which is the orange cube with the little white lines on them, and do that. You can see that our chamfers, our bevels have now come up, and I'm going to just click and drag. Kind of get a rough idea. What we want to do is we want to just get these points, these corners, to roughly where the curve begins on the drawing. Obviously, because it's a 2D drawing done by hand, it's not mathematically perfect, so don't freak out if you can't get it absolutely perfect. I'd say for me, looking at mine, 0.3 is about the right setting for that. And what I'm going to do then is just go in and probably set it to 3 segments. That looks pretty good. Yep. So I'm going to see now that we've definitely got that curve going on. Definitely got that curve, and it fits in really nicely. Okay. So if we go back to perspective mode, one thing you will see is that we've created. Oh, before I do anything else, actually, the more edges we get, the more confusing it might get, or the more things we need to kind of keep track of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on wireframe on Polygons, which is the little, in this kind of group of buttons here, it's this one. So if I click off, you can see now that all my wireframe is blue. So I can see where all the vertex are, I can see where all the edges are, and I can see what is dividing up these polygons. So if it's turned off, it's a lot of guessing game. If it's turned on, I know exactly what's going on. So as you can see here, we've made some more than four-sided shapes, which obviously is a bit of a bad thing. So we want to close these shapes. But one way we can close these shapes really easily is if we just go in and actually delete these faces. We can make like an empty box. We go to edge and we double click. So if you double click an edge, it'll kind of select the entire ring. And if we go to extrude and we click R, because I don't want to use that gimbal when we first do an extrusion, we want to kind of not use this gimbal because this becomes very obsolete fast. It doesn't always work how we want it to work. It's not, it's not doing what we would want it to do there. So just for safety's sake, I'm just going to go to scale. I'm going to start scaling that in. You can see there that now that we've got rid of those five-sided or whatever sided shapes they were, and we've now created four-sided shapes because we've actually used that edge to extrude from. So that extrudes an edge from that vertex and an edge from that vertex, and then seals it off. So then we've got a nice perfect quad, and those quads run all the way around. So if we look from the front, turn on wireframe, turn on X-ray, sorry, we can now start just scaling that in, and then using the scale tool just to get a better idea about placing that in. I'm going to say that's about right. And when we come around to the back, obviously because we've got this little radiator back here, we do the exact same thing. So select all those and then extrude, scale, and then bring that in. Now one thing I would say is try not to make this radiator at the back too big, so don't try and like start doing the radiator from back here, because we're gonna, you can see that he's got a little cord, and if you look from the front you can see that that cord is actually on the left side, or his right, our left. So you know that this is going to want to sit behind, or next to, should I say, the radiator. It's not sitting inside a radiator, it's sitting next to the radiator. You can see that if we go into our source image folder and we go to this TVBOY sheet, you can see that there, you can see that this cord is sitting next to the right of the radiator. So I'm going to scale it in a little bit. Kind of judging by eye. If I move it out a little bit, if I go to side view and then move it out a little bit, you can kind of see to what size. So I'm going to scale that to about there. I'm going to move it back. Right, so if I hold V to snap to vertex and just move it backwards a little bit, it's going to snap to in line with all those vertex of the back there. That just keeps it nice and equal. I might even make that a little bit smaller. I don't want the radiator to be too big. Okay, so now we've got lots of nice quads. We've got no triangles. We've got no n-gons, which are the more than five-sided shapes, and we've got our nice bevels at the edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add more divisions on each side of this edge so that we can get the nicer curve going on. So if I go back to Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop, and make sure this number is 1 again, I'll just click there, click there, and click there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move these two, well, these, I guess, 4 edges. We don't want to click these back ones because these will affect the radiator, but we want to click these two because we want to affect the top of the screen and then the top of like the insert where the actual glass screen is going to be. So if I go to the front view, go to X-ray, and then I can move them up and actually start tracing. Looks pretty good already. Yeah. and I can go down and do the exact same down here. Select up. So I'm going to come out of X-ray view to do this. So I'm going to click the front one and click the back one, click the front one and click the back one, go back, and then just move that into position. Okay, and then come out of wireframe. You can see there that we've got a really nice curve, and it's really low poly. I mean, there's no, there's only, in the entire scene so far, there is only 154 edges, 64 faces, 66 faces, and 88 vertex, which is an incredibly low number when it comes to 3D modeling. But if we click off this, we can see that it looks really, really nice and smooth. So we don't need to go in and add loads of vertex to justify a smoothness. The human eye will see smooth and it'll just understand smooth. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is I'm going to leave the head as it is for now, because I'm going to actually do a save. So if I hold Control S, I'm going to get given his scenes TVBOY 2, and I'm going to name this TVBOY _1. So the next time I save, I'm actually going to save it as TVBOY _2. So that every time we do that save, we kind of make our saves like that, 3, 4, 5, and then if anything does mess up, we can only ever just go back that one save, and then we've not lost 10 hours worth of work. We might have only lost, hopefully, about 10 minutes or even at most an hour's worth of work.